Hey guys, welcome back to Greg's Fishroom. Today we are going to do a DIY project for outside in the greenhouse. Now, as you guys might know, I have 4 IBC toads out in my greenhouse and I am dying to get into pond season, which is right around the corner. And this project is going to help me breed my egg scattering fish. That's right, we're going to be building a gigantic egg scattering fry trap for my IBC toads. So come along with me and learn how to be a better aquarist. Alright, the tools you're going to need for this project include a measuring tape, pair of scissors. It would help to have a pair of scissors which are actually a pair of shears for fabric, a sharp knife. We've got some wide masking tape or painter's tape, and we're going to need a hot glue gun. And it's best if you have a low temperature hot glue gun, but a high temperature one will also work. The materials you're going to need for this project include your standard pool noodle. It helps to have a piece of 1-inch backer rod. You're going to need some sort of fine mesh material. It will basically determine how large of a size fish you can have in your basket, but really any size netting will do as long as your fish can't get through that netting. And then you're going to need a really cheap laundry basket. In addition, one other thing you'll need are some river stones. Anything that is small and round, or at least doesn't have rough edges, those would be the good stones to get, and you can get them in a variety of different sizes. I found mine actually in my backyard, but you can get them at basically any store or any gravel pit. Alright, so the first step is to take whatever laundry basket you have. I basically got the cheapest one I could possibly find. It's very lightweight. I doubt it could actually hold much laundry at all, but I wanted something that was round, I wanted something that was white, and I wanted something that was about 5 gallons in terms of volume. And you'll notice it has a lot of holes on the bottom. The more holes on the bottom, the better for this type of project. Next thing you're going to need is to take your piece of netting material, and you're going to want to cut it to size. And what you need to measure essentially is the depth of your barrel, and then I added 2 inches to that measurement. And then you're going to want to measure the circumference as well, all the way around. And then I also added a couple inches to that measurement. And what that's going to give you is a piece of material that you're going to want to drape inside of your basket. So it may be a little difficult to get it going, but essentially what you want to do is drape 1 to 2 inches of material over the top of the rim, and you want to get it all the way around so that it overlaps itself back at the beginning. And down on the bottom, what you want to do is make sure that it goes all the way down to the bottom, but that it's not overlapping all of the holes on the bottom of your basket. So that's what you want to do for this. Once you've done that, you can set this aside. Alright, the next thing you need to do is work on your pool noodle. Now, this is just a standard 55-inch pool noodle that you can get at the dollar store. And then I have a piece of 1-inch backer rod, and you can usually get this at the hardware store. This is used for filling cracks in construction sites and things like that. The reason this is important is because there's a hole in the center of the pool noodle, and I found it's a lot easier if you just take like a 6 to 8-inch section of backer rod and you stuff half of it in one side of the pool noodle hole, and then you stuff the other half on the other side. And so if you're not able to get these sides to touch, you can just trim down your backer rod an inch or two to get it to the point where it's easy to connect the two. Alright, once you have your backer rod and your pool noodles ready to go, what you're going to need is your hot glue gun. Now, I have a high temperature hot glue gun here. I recommend a low temperature hot glue gun. If you have a high temperature gun, what you're gonna need to do is plug it in and wait until it's just starting to melt the glue, but it's not full heat. If it's at full heat, it's too hot, so just unplug it. What you want it to be able to do is to dispense the glue, but not be full temperature. Otherwise, you're just gonna melt your foam. So what I do is I apply the hot glue to the inside, both inside edges of the pool noodle, and also as much as I can on the backer rod. And then what you have to do is hold this in place, and you need to hold it tight, and you need to hold it in place for 2 to 3 minutes, really until it's fully dried on the inside. One thing I found that helps with this is if you use the wide blue painter's tape to tape this seam, it can help it to hold itself in place while it dries, so that you don't have to just struggle to hold these pieces in place. Once you've done that, and once it's dry, it should look something like this. And as chance would have it, a full 55-inch pool noodle is actually the exact perfect size for this basket that I have here. So I'll link the basket in the description down below in case you want to pick this up. It just makes less work for yourself. You don't have to cut the pool noodle at all. It's the exact right size. It's always fun to find things like that that just work. So this is going to help us to float this basket. Now, there's only one more thing we need to do, and that is to create a second white basket that has a bed of river stones in the bottom. So let's go work on that. We're going to use our hot glue gun again, and we're going to glue all of those stones into the bottom of the next barrel. So let's go do that now. Alright guys, so we have our two barrels here. One has the river stones that are glued into the bottom with the hot glue, and the other one has our mesh netting just draped over the edges. And I considered trying to affix this netting either with hot glue or wire or zip ties or other things. It just seemed like too much work. It seemed like a lot of effort. And what I found was the easiest way to actually lock this in place, but also allow it to be completely disassembled and cleaned if necessary, is to just drop one basket right into the other. And then what you have is you've got a nice firm netting, mesh netting that's all the way around the edges of your basket, and then the edges just have about an inch or so of extra material that should be hanging out over the edge. Now, if you did it right, you should still have plenty of surface area on the bottom, which is more or less open to allow all your eggs to fall through. If you have too much of the netting down on the inside, what you can do is you can just pull these edges a little bit, and it will pull that netting up a little bit so that you're good to go here. All right, so that's it for the build. All we need to do then is just slap the pool noodle ring around the edge, and this will be able to float in our IBC totes. So let's go throw it outside and see how it floats. All right, we are out inside the greenhouse, and inside our IBC tub we have our floating egg scatterer fry basket. Now you can see this worked out absolutely perfect. We've got enough weight on the bottom with all of those stones that this is not very tippy at all. And since this is a full pool noodle, it's got quite a bit of flotation, enough flotation that I don't think any of the fish are going to jump out. I could put a top over it if I needed to, but I think with an inch and a half above the water line here, I don't think the fish are going to jump out. And the basket is big enough that I think the fish that I'm planning to put in here will be plenty comfortable and they won't feel the need to jump out. One other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some floating plants on top. That gives them an extra sense of protection and some cover so that they don't feel like they're wide out in the open. So as you can see, this fits quite nicely in the top of an IBC tote. I would say I could probably get 2, maybe 3 of these floating baskets into each one of these IBC totes if I wanted to. I think I'm going to start with 1 basket per tote here, but I could always expand if I have more adult fish to put out here. Now, it's too cold to move the fish out today, so we will not be doing that. But as you can see, we've got a nice cobblestone bottom to this basket. So these fish are going to be able to wake up every morning with the natural sunlight in the greenhouse, and they're going to be able to spawn over the bottom of these cobbles. I might put a little Java moss in the middle there as well, just to stimulate their spawning activity. But anywhere they decide to spawn is going to be a safe spot for those eggs, because the eggs will hit those stones and then fall in between the stones, and then most of them should probably find their way and fall all the way through this floating basket down into the bottom of the IBC tote, which is about 2-3 feet of water. And there's going to be no adult fish at all in this entire IBC tote except for in the spawning basket. So those baby fish will have plenty of infusoria, baby brine shrimp, you name it. I'll be feeding it live foods predominantly to make sure that they have as much space and as much food as they need to grow out. And I think by the end of the pond season, if I was to put, let's say, 12 to 24 white clouds in a basket like this, I'm also going to do rainbow shiners, I'm going to do Vietnamese white clouds, and I'm going to do golden white clouds. So I've got 4 species of egg scattering fish, which are non-sticky eggs. All of those fish really enjoy scattering their eggs over cobble like this that have nice little nooks and crannies for all of those eggs to basically disappear and be hidden and protected from other fish, including protected from themselves. So if I ever notice that one of my adult fish is somehow able to find a tiny hole through the bottom of one of these rocks and escape out into the larger IBC tote, I can always put more rocks on top. Now this first layer to layer and a half of rocks that you see here in the bottom of this basket, they're mostly glued into place, but that doesn't stop me from just dropping more tiny stones on top. as an additional layer. If I find any spots that just look a little too big, I can always cover those up. And I'm fully expecting some of those little eggs to hatch within all of these stones, but I think most of them, when they do hatch, they're not going to swim up into the parents. They're probably going to swim down away from the parents, away from the danger, and eventually find their way out the bottom of this basket into their brand new home, which is the IBC tote. So that's it. That's the project. I think it turned out great. You could use these in your larger tanks or your larger stock tanks indoors as well if you wanted to. I think it would work equally as well in a situation like that. I may even play around with adding the return flow to the inside of this basket, something like that, to give even more flow and stimulate some of these fish that like the flow, that come from these high mountain, colder, cooler water streams, and which find this nice river gravel to spawn in. So that might be the key to getting them really excited to spawn. And so if it looks like it's stressing them out, I don't have to put the inlet over the tub, but it's always an option. If they seem to be enjoying it, and if it's seeming to help, I can certainly do that as well. But that's the tub, that's the tote. I think this turned out great. I think it's the perfect size, the perfect depth, and I really couldn't have designed something simpler than this. So again, if you want to pick up some of these really cheap laundry baskets, I'll leave the link in the description down below. I would highly recommend you get your pool noodles at your local dollar store. They're super cheap, or maybe even your grocery store. And then the netting material, you can always find that at your fabric store. So again, just get something that's not going to allow your adult fish to slip through. But that's it. I think this worked great. I'm gonna go build 3 more of these, and then I'm gonna count down the days until pond season officially starts and I can move these fish outdoors. Anyways guys, I hope you liked the build, and I'll see you guys later.